All right. Good morning. Good afternoon. Hello to everybody. First off, if you're catching this live, and I know this takes a little bit to catch up, let us know where you're coming in from. And then if you're on team replay, let us know where you're joining us from also, because we will definitely be checking the comments and making sure that we interact with you as we go forward. But, today I have someone who's here to disrupt the traditional success blueprint. I want you to welcome Lorna Sherland. She's known as the connection queen and disruptor. She spent 2 decades connecting buyers and sellers in real estate. And for the past 6 years, she's been helping people like you, speakers, coaches, service providers, break through those plateaus, those moments in life that things kind of hit you and you need to break through, realign with that vision within them, and then grow their income substantially. So Lorna and I are going to speak about some transformations, some great things today. It's going to be a fun event. But like I said, if you're on live, please let us know where you're coming in from. I see a few are on live. And if you're on replay, please do the same also, so we can come back and at least let you know, hey, we saw you and acknowledge you here. So Lorna, great to see you. How are things down in Dallas today?
It's kind of cloudy. It's been storming since yesterday, but hey, I'll take it. It's not hot
Nice.
and humid, so it's beautiful. Any day
Can't
above
beat
ground
that.
is beautiful, is what I always say.
That's the true statement right there, right? Rather be on this side than the other side.
Yeah. Yes.
So we're going to take about 30 minutes today, get you an introduction to Lorna. She has an awesome event coming up in Dallas we'll talk about too. So if you scan right there anytime during the call, you can see what it's all about. We'll bring it up on the bottom. But Lorna, whenever I interview somebody on my LinkedIn Lives, one of the things I always say is they have a mission that matters, right? And that mission is typically something the person's been through or have helped others get through, and a people group they're fighting for. So what I want to ask you today is, who are you fighting for and why are you fighting for them?
Well, Chris, thank you for that question, and thank you for having me here to speak into your audience. Yeah, it's actually the former for me. It's lived experience, right? So I'm fighting for the female entrepreneur who is building a business and is sometimes weary, right? Weary in build, and feel like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And there's a lot of sacrifice in terms of who they are, right? They're the supporter. They support everybody. They show up for everybody. They hustle, right? They do all the things. And at the end of the day, they're exhausted. So I'm fighting for them to step back into their power. Yeah.
Okay.
Because when they step into their power, they command the day, they command their life, they command their business, right? So how do you get that? How do you get there? There are a couple of steps that you got to take in between to first to realize that you're in that space, right? And then
Yep.
to have the courage to
Mm,
admit it and
courage.
acknowledge it,
That's
and
a
then to move through it. So yeah. I like that.
I got to keep these fun. It's all about the fun. But yeah, the courage, right? Because when somebody realizes something,
Mhm.
having the courage to take that next step is always where the test is at. And some
Yeah,
will back
yeah,
down. Some will say, "Oh, I'm going to face this thing head on solo," and then others are going to be like, "I need some help to face this thing," right? And there's three
exactly.
different varieties. But let's talk about this. Like when I see life getting challenging for people, okay, typically they could get bored because it's so challenging. They're always facing that same thing, and it bores them out.
Mhm,
It's like, oh my gosh, I got to get through this mountain. I got to push this boulder, whatever it is that sits in front of them.
mhm,
They start to feel stuck, like you were saying, right? They get
mhm,
overwhelmed, and then what I see a lot,
mhm.
Lorna, is people feel undervalued because all these things are hitting them. And the reality is, that's the moment that if you just dial into it and take this as a lesson and what you can learn, that's where you're going to have a significant impact in this world. Not only changing your life, but having the opportunity to change hundreds and thousands of other people's lives. And I know that's something that you're doing right now.
Mhm, mhm.
So when you work with clients, like how do you work them through that process? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, first they got to be willing to actually look, right? And admit. So you're bored. So asking questions to yourself, like, what is happening? Most of us, we don't ask the question, so we just stay
Yep.
in the habit of life. I get to do a talk this afternoon to a really big community, and I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, well, what's the challenge, right? The challenge is that we don't really want to admit that we're in a life of habit, and
Ooh,
how once you recognize that you're in your life is just a habit, you got to do something different, right? But
yep.
first, you got to recognize that the first step to transformation is awareness,
Okay.
and it's a big deal. It's simple. Hear me when I say it's
Yeah, yeah.
simple. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? Because the habit, when you're on autopilot, you just get up and you do the same thing every day
Yeah.
without
Yep.
even being present. So you got to be present to know that you're in the habit. Yeah.
Ooh, that's
So um, when you recognize that you're in that habit, you're
you're
gonna
gonna
make me
see
laugh
those
the
all
whole
throughout
time.
this. Don't worry.
When you recognize that you're in the habit, then now you got to make a decision and ask yourself, okay, do I want to stay here? Or how long do I want to stay here? Because here's the thing, we're emotional beings, right? So if you're an emotional being, you're in it. And by the way, boredom is an emotion. Just so
Yeah.
just so we're clear, boredom is an emotion. And so when you recognize that and you're asking yourself different questions to say, okay, what is this telling me about what's happening? And going through that process and having a process for yourself to ask the questions and get to the other side, then now you can get into, okay, what do I want this to look like, right?
Yep.
Typically, what I find when I work with my clients, the first thing, and I'll give you an example, the first
That'd be
thing that
great.
I usually do is a strategic session, right?
Okay.
Strategic session doesn't really necessarily, we do strategy. Listen, Chris, everybody, you have a strategy. Tony Robbins has a strategy. Everybody has a strategy for everybody,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
What if there's something that comes before the strategy, right? Now you got to see what is in the way. The first thing we do is, what is the vision for what you are creating? What I found,
Mm.
and this is based on experience as well, is that typically when we get bored, it's one, because we are off course of our vision. Two,
Yep.
we don't know what the vision is. And three, the vision, I'm going to put it in quotes, it's not really the vision. It,
Ooh,
it could be an
that's a big
idea,
one.
right? An
Yep.
idea, but it's not really the vision. So when you get clear on that, then now you're able to make the necessary take the necessary action, find the right people to support you around the vision, because you don't get to do it alone, right? You don't get
Yeah.
to do it alone. Most of us are solopreneurs, and
Yep.
solopreneur doesn't mean that you do it alone. So there's a whole distinction around that as well, right?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
definitely. No, no, I was going to say it comes down to this. You're going to get the cycling analogy with the Peloton, right? You need to be around others, and you really need to hone in on where you can get that assistance. And I think we're all guilty of, especially when we get bored because that vision isn't aligned, right? I know you talk a lot
Mhm,
about alignment.
mhm,
We just, like, I could figure this out on my own, and I've seen
mhm,
so many people try to do that. A year later, same spot, if not worse. 2 years later, same spot, if not worse, and it just keeps on
mhm,
rippling while they watch other people just grow and start to make a greater impact, and then they start
mhm,
comparing themselves to that, right?
mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about the alignment that you work through, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you shouldn't feel drained if you're aligned into your vision. That's what I've learned, and I've been drained before, right?
yes,
Like, whoa,
yeah.
something's broken here, what's going on? Worked with a mentor, and then, oh, I'm not seeing that, right? So let's talk about
Mhm.
this alignment to your vision.
I love that, because that leads right into the event. That's a big idea around Grit and Thrive Live coming up in Dallas on June 26th.
Which is right there.
It's the alignment of, what is the impact you want to make. And here's the thing, one of the things that I was actually in a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about legacy, right? And people were talking about, okay, what is a legacy? Who is a legend, and what is a legacy you want to leave, right? And one of the things that was common among everybody was that they didn't even think that they were a legend, right?
Mm,
Why? Because everybody thinks of a legend as somebody who is they've done mighty things in the world. Mandela, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, the Pope, right?
Yep.
Who recently died, right? And nobody really thinks about themselves as a legend. And I think if you start with the end in mind, number one, and then start with um, helping one person at a time, it could be that simple, right? Like when you feel like you're bored, maybe take the case that you just get to help one person get a result that they're looking for
Yeah.
in their life. And then now that energy starts giving you momentum to say, okay, let me look at my business and see how many more people I can help with this, with the problem that they
Yep.
have, right? And then that ripple effect just goes out. So just doing a little thing like that can bring you into alignment, but you first got to take the time to see what's happening. The
Yeah.
boredom is just an indicator that something gets to shift. The boredom is just an indicator that, like anything else, when you're uncomfortable, that's the time that you get to move through the uncomfortableness to
Yeah.
get to the other side. So,
Moving through that uncomfort is, well, uncomforting, but it also can bring back so much energy to you and
yeah.
so much excitement. Because here's what happens. I've been through the areas that the plateaus there. I'm stuck. There's this big boulder, and I work with somebody that says the boulder's there, but why aren't you doing? And you get right around it. It's like, wait, I couldn't see that myself, right? That's what a lot of people do. But that feeling when you're on the other side, like all of a sudden, like you said, because some boulders I've gone through in my life, it's like I never knew I'd be helping people do what I'm doing right now, right? It
Mhm.
was not my
Mhm.
vision when I started this journey 7 years ago, actually 8 years
Yeah.
ago now.
Yeah.
So it all of a sudden something clicked and I saw it work for me. And I started to change my life. And then all of a sudden
Mhm.
I told a story in an event I was hosting, and a person in there said, "Hey, great, I'll do whatever you have, but I want to do exactly what you did to get here."
Mhm. Mhm.
And I just started doing it consistently and consistently. And it was like
That's the
that
that's the
break in
word.
the moment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word. So you see, and you asked me a question before, and I don't think I answered it clearly. The
No, I was
the
coming back to it.
the alignment really is all about um, just thinking about the fact that if you are bored, if you don't know what to do, it may be a blind spot for you, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
when you're in a blind spot, even if you think the vision is clear, when you're in a blind spot, you can't see it. So that's that's you pushing the boulder up the mountain, right? Because
Yep.
it's a blind, everybody has blind spots, which is why everybody gets to have a mentor, like you said, a coach or
Yeah.
somebody, or just some accountability partner who's going to
Yep.
help you to move to the other side, right? Again, everything that we're saying, it boils down to one thing: you don't get to do it alone. So whether you
Yeah.
do it with me, whether you do it with Chris, whether you do it in your community that you're a part of, and that's the other piece of it too. I've been in so many communities that and so many coaching programs that people don't get connected to what they, right? And so why
Yeah.
is that? there's
Yep.
there's there's a missing link there that we get to address, right? Why is it that you spent the money? And let's talk about value. This is a value conversation, by the way. You
Yep.
bought into the program, you said you wanted to do this thing, and yet you're not showing up for it. So why not?
Yeah.
That's a value conversation. And that's an example of the questions you get to ask yourself when you do things that you do. So one of the things we're going to do at the Grit and Thrive Live is get clear on what your values are, because you're making decisions based on your values. You're just not aware of it, right? So
Yep.
that's a blind spot.
Man, and it's really interesting because I've mentored so many people, and when I often hear this, and you probably can relate to this, that program didn't work, that coach didn't help me, this and
Mhm.
that, and often what happened, I'm as guilty as charged when I share this. Okay,
Absolutely. We're not.
often I get through that plateau that was like, because I the plateau was sitting in the way, and I couldn't see what was being shown to take the next step. And all of a sudden, I had a mentor once who told me, "I guarantee you, what you learned in that one program you took, Chris, it will all shift when you get through a moment in your life. I don't know what that moment in your life is. I'll never forget. I spent 20 grand on a program many years ago when I was in corporate sales, and it did nothing for me. And I was in the right role at the right time 3 years later, and all of a sudden, boom, I just accelerated. But it was because I made the investment in myself back then. Yes, I was probably, use the word frustrated, whatever you want to call it. Man, a lot of money didn't do anything for me. But when I was in the position, when I was ready, when I was who I was meant to be, it just clicked. So let's talk about that, because you've worked with people. You kind of started going along that. Like, let's talk about how often you see that.
That
Oh, and I want to give a couple shout outs real quick, just real
yeah,
quick.
yeah.
Hello, Sherry. Great to see you. And then we
Right,
also
Karen.
have Karen. All right. So Karen Smith. So I just wanted to give some shout outs. Thanks for being on live with us.
Thank you for being here, ladies. Yeah, all day, every day. So you asked how often do I see that? All day, every day. Like I said, it's a blind spot for us. It's
Yep.
a blind spot. And I'm using the word us specifically because we all do it, right? We
Yep.
all have been there, or we are there. Where
Yeah.
we're in it, but we can't see it. And unless you have somebody who has been through it,
Yep.
who can now see it, so that they can save you the time. A lot of people, when they introduce me to their platforms, they ask me, "What do you do, Lorna?" And I tell them that I collapse time for people. That's
Oh,
what I
that's a good one.
do.
That's
I
fire right
collapse
there.
time because I've been there. I've been there. And so
Yep.
I can see it when I see it. And if you're open, I can invite you into it. Because here's the next thing I want to be clear on.
Yeah.
And this is what we're doing at Grit and Thrive Live.
I'm going
We're
to put the
having,
QR code on this too, just so we have it up there so people can scan this. But go ahead.
yeah, we are not going to be a raw come to a conference and just start making notes and you leave and nothing changes. No, this is an acceleration of your business and your life. What are you choosing to handle at this stage, right?
Yep.
When you come in, we're going to collapse the time because you're going to be in a space where we can see you and
Yep.
have you see yourself, right? And when
Yep.
you do that, then and Chris, when you had that light bulb moment, you share with us what was that light bulb moment, because you said when the light bulb went off, you accelerated.
Yeah. I mean, at that moment, the one I'm particularly talking about,
Mhm,
I was always doing something a certain way and it worked. Okay. It
mhm,
worked, but it was, quite frankly, it took a lot longer to do it that way, but it
mhm,
worked. And then
mhm,
I just made two simple pivots on things I learned. And I went from selling, and this was in corporate America at mid level, right? Going right
mhm,
to the CEO of the company,
mhm.
sending a simple letter that went right, that really tied into their values and how we could help, short to the point. And then I had on that letter, hey, I'm going to call your office at this time to see when would be a good time to discuss this with somebody in your organization. Because I knew I wasn't going to speak to the CEO. And I did
Mhm.
that time again, and did that for 90 days. And all of a sudden started converting clients at the highest level, because somebody very high up would say, oh, deal with so-and-so now, versus me going to so-and-so and, they stall this and that. So I went higher up and I just started running and running like that. And that actually led to things in my career, more like when I look at, you might know Jeffrey Hazlett, the C-Suite Network, right?
Mhm,
I had
mhm,
the opportunity to work with him and help him launch that because of that, because he saw I was getting into these high level accounts. So it was
mhm.
something, but when I learned the system, I wasn't ready as a person for that yet, right? It took time to go forward.
So I want to
Yeah.
stop you there if you don't mind. Something shifted for you because you hear what you said. You weren't ready, right?
Yep.
So we got to see what was in the way. That being not ready, that unreadiness, that's what you move through. But you
Yeah.
had to see that you weren't ready, right?
Yep.
And once you did, the second piece of what you just said was that you remain consistent in the whole process. Once you
Yeah.
saw it, then you kept doing. Now it's a new habit. Remember, we started out with habit. Now it's a
Yeah.
new habit, right? You had
Yep.
one habit before. Like I said, our lives are a bunch of habits. We just get to realize it and then learn how to I was going to say manipulated because that's really what it is. You got to
It
learn how to
is.
use that to your advantage, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's what you just did is a perfect example of how to move through the plateau. You got to recognize it. You got to see it. Once you see it, what do? You could have seen it and still said, yeah, well, I'm not gonna either not gonna do it, or you could have seen it and said, okay, let me try it this way, and you could have stopped at 30 days because it wasn't working.
Yeah. Oh, that's another big one right there. Stop at 30. I can't tell you how many people I see, and you watch them try all these different tactics. And I'm
Mhm,
like, here's the deal. Every tactic works that you're trying. Everything
mhm,
works. You've got to stay consistent. But because somebody doesn't see a result in 21 days, it doesn't work.
mhm,
Guess
mhm.
what? 32 days in, it probably was going to work for you, because I see this all the time too. I watch people and like, you've tried everything. I get it. Now, like Brandon Bouchard, I worked with him in a group program once. He used to always say, oh, you've tried everything. Where's the spreadsheet with everything you tried and how many times you tried it and where you did it and how consistent you were? And would always be in his group program. He's like, no, 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 you didn't try everything. And the big thing is you didn't stay consistent on the
Mhm.
one thing.
Yeah,
So
it's a big
let's
deal.
talk about this, because you're going to be doing an event, and I can share the
Yeah.
page if you want up here. But like, you have
Mhm,
an event coming up in Dallas in
mhm,
the 26th and through the 28th of June.
mhm.
And I'll let you talk about what this is, because you're going to go deeper on this. But this is an in-person event, so you need to understand you got to be in Dallas for this. You can learn more about it by scanning that QR code. It'll take you right to the page to look at everything. But let's talk about what you're going to do there, because what we're kind of showing the icing on the cake here, and I know you're going to get into the ingredients a little bit in this event.
Yeah. So at the event, we're gonna get deep. We're gonna get deep because the intention is not to have you leave the same way you came, right? And there's only
Right.
one way to do that. We've got to get to the breakthrough. Kind of like what you shared just now, Chris. We got to get them to the awareness so that they can get to the breakthrough. Once we get to the breakthrough, now we're going to create strategic plans based on the new vision that you create from the breakthrough, right? So
Love
day
it.
one,
Yep.
we're going to do breakthrough. Day two, we're going to do strategic plans. And day three, we're going to integrate everything so that when they leave, they stay in that momentum, that 90-day momentum that you just talked about that you did until you got that result for the guy who in that momentum, so we get to the result faster. So within 90 days, results from what we create in the room in 3 days. What would life look like if we did that all the time, right?
Yeah. It's great too. Here's the thing: there's two mindsets out there right now. Summer's coming up, right? There's the I'm going to rest and do nothing, or I'm going to change my life over the summer. So when fall comes, everything kicks momentum, right? And this is what you can
Yeah,
help people with right now. Hey,
yeah, yeah,
let me get you some momentum going into the fall, so this year ends how
yeah,
you want it to. So you go
yeah.
into 2026. And like, people think I'm crazy because I talk to people about this all the time for the things I do. I'm like, you want to have a great fall and a great 2026. Now is the moment. Now is the moment. If not, you're going to start this in the fall. Guess what? You're not going to start to see what you want to see until
Like,
sometime in 2026.
yeah,
People don't
yeah,
want to hear this stuff, but
yeah.
that's just the reality.
Yeah, but you know why? You know why they don't want to hear it? Because they think that no, let me caveat it with saying this. When I say collapse time, that's
Yeah.
different from planting the seed. You're going to be planting seeds. But most people, when seeds get planted, they want the tree right away, right? But it doesn't work like that.
Yep.
Everything is in season. That's why we have spring, summer, autumn, winter. You got to plant first,
Yep.
then you got to water, then the trees got to grow, and then you bear the fruit. The fruit doesn't come just because you planted the seed. The fruit is in the seed, right? But it still has to go through the
Yep.
process. So you got to trust the process, is what it really is. I wear a bracelet every day called "Trust Yourself." You got to trust the process.
Love it.
It's part of the whole gambit of life is to trust the process, right? So I'm super excited to have the woman here
Yeah.
in Dallas and really deep dive in into. And here's the thing: you may already be successful, right? But what if you were actually built for more? I'm not talking about more hustle. I'm just talking about more of you,
Yeah.
authentic you. You,
Yep.
you don't know what you don't know. right? And
Yep.
most of the times we get stuck because we've done what we can do based on the information we have now, not exploring
Yep.
what more is possible. And that's what we're creating in that room, you know? And that's what I'm creating with my clients. What's possible? You know, I had a client who she didn't even have a vision, Chris. When she came to me, she didn't even have a vision. When I asked her, "What's your vision for your life?" You know, she said, "Nobody has ever asked me that before." Yeah.
Wow.
And within 5 months, she created 50% of her 5 year goals. 5 months, done. That's what
That's I completed them. Check box.
that's what clarity can do,
Well, I
right?
mean,
When you're clear,
yeah.
right? And by the way, she had some of the pieces already in play. She just didn't see it because she was so focused on what she didn't have.
Well, you know why? I mean, it's simple. Says it in the Bible. Where there's no vision, they will perish. Right, and that's like the key thing. It's like when that's there, you know what? When the boulder gets in your
Oh,
way, you're like, "Psh, ought to be expected. Let's go. Let's
when the
go."
bowl is in your way, is your indicator that you're off the path. So let's get you back
Yeah.
on the path,
Yep.
right? So you
Yeah.
hit the nail right on the head just now. That's the whole crux of what I do. Is bringing you back to vision, or
I,
you get to create one that's aligned with well
yeah.
why you're here, right? Yeah,
Love it. Love it. So you got this.
yeah,
It's in 2 weeks. Plenty of
yeah.
time to
Plenty of time.
register for this. You could reach out to Yeah, reach out to Lorna directly on any of her socials. Reach out to me. I have everything you need. But easiest thing to do if you're catching us on replay, hit that little QR code. It
Mhm.
pops up the page. And then, if you have any questions, reach
Yeah.
out to either one of us. So, Lorna, let's stay with me when we're done here, but I'll let you
Mhm.
close this out with what you want to, and then you and I will
Yeah,
chat when I end
absolutely.
this.
So here's what I want to say to the ladies out there who are listening and the men who love them, because I do have male clients. Here's the thing.
Yeah,
You were really seriously meant for more. You were also built for more. And my invitation to you is to, you know, I got to tell you a story to tell you what I want to tell you.
yeah, yeah, no,
In
definitely.
one of my leadership training, I had an exercise that they gave us to go to the cemetery. And I was like, why you sending me to the cemetery? And then I got it when I got there, right? All the gifts that are in you will be in that cemetery if you don't unlock them now and give them to other people.
Ooh,
So I'm here to help unlock
ooh,
the gifts that are in you that you have not tapped into yet, that you feel like there's no more. This is what I do. This is who I am. We're going to unlock you because there's more. We just get to have some support in unlocking it. And so I'm going to invite you into joining us in Dallas to get to the next. That's what I mean by next level. Next level is the next level of
yeah,
who you were created to be, and the money will come right along with it. So join me.
yeah.
I'm super excited to have you there.
Awesome. This has been great. Those that catch us on replay, like I said, just reach out to Lorna or I. We'll both help you and get you set up. Those that are in Dallas, hop on, register for this. You're going to have an awesome time. Great community forming there, and you're going to get to meet
James,
others that are in the same
yes,
situation as you. So you know how powerful that is. You get around a room of 20, 30 people who are all there for the same reason. That is momentum that just kicks off in one place, and
absolutely.
energy that you can't
Absolutely.
take away.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop this and stay with me. And thank you all for on live. Sherry, I know you were on live. We saw